In addition, when thinking about CBDCs, bear in mind that the central bank and the major Wall Street banks might create programmable, surveillable money. Yes, I understand. That is precisely the course of action that individuals such as Jamie Dimon have proposed. Yes, I understand. They have their JPM coin. And similar matters. Trump may have rejected CBDCs, but he hasn't rejected programmable, surveillable currency. In America, it was always more probable to originate from the Wall Street banks that control the Federal Reserve System rather than the Fed itself. The Federal Reserve Bank of New York is the most influential institution within the Federal Reserve System. One of its major shareholders is JP Morgan. Yes, I understand. We hear about influential people in the banking sector and their desire to perhaps compromise our privacy through digital identification in a recent interview with We As Jimmy Dore's show. Trading around $1.67 at the time of writing, Bitcoin has lost less than 1% of its value in the last 24 hours and gained 5% in the previous 7 days. Webb investigates the new CBDC's digital ID and central bank digital currencies, shedding light on the dangers these technologies provide to individual liberty and financial independence. She goes on the possible ramifications for businesses and how corporations like Palantir are working with these technologies. If elected, none of these politicians will be able to solve the world's problems by magic. It is the personal obligation of every American to prepare themselves, their families, and their communities as best they can for the craziness that is starting to happen, whether it be economic troubles or other forms of violence, network security breaches, supply chain problems, etc. Things are going to get wild for sure, but we can't expect the government or tech companies to bail us out. Instead, we must learn to depend on one another and our communities. The tech industry is pushing for a future where our digital ID is required for every action we take. Part of it is factional, in my opinion, but we must also remember that there is a great deal of it, and I would even go so far as to say that some of the political events serve only to divert our attention. When you examine Peter Thiel, he donates a lot of money to Republican campaigns. Eric Schmidt is an influential Democrat donor, and the two of them basically co-chair the American delegation at the Bilderberg meeting. So in the end, they find more common ground than they do disagreement, and I believe they like diverting our attention with so much of this. And Trump is, well, most people remember him from his days as a reality TV star and from his appearances on wrestling and other shows before he became president. His photogenic qualities are well documented, and he even managed to crack a few jokes during the first campaign. He has a talent for making ordinary Americans like him, but I believe his policies and the image he has cultivated deserve more attention. Therefore, I believe that part of it is factional, but I also think that, taking into account that Trump's base was severely let down by him the first time around, how can trust be restored on a person and rally support for a candidate once more, especially when he plans to do things that are obviously not populist, like proposing to put Jamie Dimon in head of the Treasury and such. I believe it's important to persuade them they've established this system where being targeted by certain groups within the so-called deep state is seen as a sign of fighting for what's right, protecting Americans and their freedom, and all that jazz. Plus, I'm not convinced that's always the case. To a certain degree, I believe that is a false dichotomy. I believe that some of the things that have been used to attack Trump and his administration may be inorganic. I don't mean the events of the last weekend, but rather these legal proceedings and similar matters. This is a man who has consistently advocated for Operation Warp Speed, helped lock down the nation, and awarded Fauci, so I think it's quite likely his faithful despise that. What can you do to reinvigorate them and win them over once more? It must also be remembered that Trump has influential supporters who approve of his previous actions and have wished for his return to power. Additionally, I believe that individuals ought to remember such details. Domestic terrorists are made abundantly evident by them. In their view, it encompasses both liberals and conservatives, as well as those who reject capitalism in its many manifestations. That encompasses the radical environmentalists, those who reject what they regard as government overreach, and any kind of stakeholder or crony capitalism which are popular in the West. The federal government views all of this as sufficient grounds to label you as a threat. This governmental apparatus is completely out of control when it comes to national security. The anti-establishment, libertarian, populist rhetoric that Trump and J.D. Vance are attempting to market themselves as is my contention. Furthermore, that does not describe these businesses. Concerningly, Trump has accepted donations from Palantir and its co-founders, including Peter Thiel and Joe Lonsdale, which raises questions about their influence over his vice presidential nominee. The war on domestic terror must end and the monitoring state must be reined in, if anyone cares. They have every right to be incensed by this, as these tactics serve only to quell opposition. Looking back to their origins during the Iran-Contra era reveals that they have always been that very concerning. Because of this, I believe that the more people that are aware of this, the more we can do to prevent it, whether that's by discovering other platforms or by trying to be as anonymous online as possible. The world of PayPal and other field-connected firms is unfortunately leading us astray. In addition to the FBI, Secret Service, and Israeli intelligence, the majority of the country's largest banks and internet companies are involved in this World Economic Forum initiative known as the Partnership Against Cybercrime. And to put an end to hacking and cybercrime, they want you to have a digital ID so you may use the internet. Furthermore, they consider hate speech to constitute cybercrime. However, I believe that Peter Thiel is an incredibly influential figure who does not receive nearly enough attention. Billionaires like him can afford to shell out a ton of cash on public relations and influencer marketing, so they can pretend to be someone they're not. Considering that Peter Thiel has provided the CIA, the national security state, with Palantir, its most powerful weapon, and his involvement with other companies such as Carbine 911, which he co-founded with Jeffrey Epstein, has led many to believe that he is a libertarian. As you may be aware, a great deal is transpiring. Everyone should be aware of Peter Thiel's true activities, attempt to limit their own online exposure, and be mindful of how they use the internet when interacting with it. Silicon Valley controls both major political parties, thus I believe they're aiming to get us in the end. Yes, I understand. After merging with the national security state, they are now effectively our de facto government. Large technology firms are all intelligence and military contractors. They're a major one, Palantir included. And they put you on the bad list, didn't they? However, in essence, everyone does it, and these are the true bosses of our government, and they are guiding us toward a technocratic totalitarian pitfall. Plus, they've made us reliant on their services, so eventually we'll have to find a method to escape if we want to. I believe it's about time we can continue to have open conversations, at the very least on certain platforms, so that we can utilize that to come up with alternatives and solutions that do not include these individuals, these billionaires. Additionally, it is worth noting that every single one of the prominent Silicon Valley oligarchs was romantically involved with Jeffrey Epstein. Just why is that the case? Larry Page was subpoenaed in the J.P. Morgan Epstein USVA case. Why did he then vanish? For what reasons were Elon Musk and Sergey Brin summoned? What was the reason behind the close relationship between Jeff Bezos and Ghislaine Maxwell? Reid Hoffman's frequent company with Jeffrey Epstein begs the question why. Peter Thiel met with Jeffrey Epstein and the two of them co-funded a few businesses.